When reflecting on how much the Geometry Dash community has changed over the last 11 years, we have all exceeded far beyond our expectations on what we originally perceived to be impossible, like making 3D objects in a 2D game, or beating a level that is so difficult that it finally be dethroned more than 3 years later. Every player in the GD community has accomplished something significant, both personally or publicly. And amongst the many Geometry Dash players attempting to dethrone the current hardest level, Amethyst by Amethyst and more, some relatively obscure accomplishments do actually overtake the difficulty of completing the hardest levels. A popular example of such is wPopoff's achievement of beating Slaughterhouse 3 times in a row, which is arguably harder than beating Tidal Wave alone, and that was the hardest level at the time of that accomplishment. And yet, that isn't even the hardest thing achieved in the game, according to the community. So what are the current hardest accomplishments ever achieved in Geometry Dash? Well, to answer that, we need to explain how something can be argued as more difficult to accomplish than others. In this video, we will be going over Geometry Dash's hardest achievements. And just a disclaimer, some of the accomplishments I'll be mentioning in this video are unofficially placed, as it is harder to compare the vastness of achievements in general to verified levels placed by the Demon List, so please don't take everything I say in this video as concrete. I'm also basing this information on the hardest achievements list created by Anceps and others, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check it out. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and a huge thanks to the Tier 4 channel members. Now for the hardest recorded achievements in the GD community. It mainly consists of progress made on current or future hardest levels, as progressions from future top 1 levels may overtake some of the hardest level completions in general, which makes sense considering only a handful of players are capable of setting these new community-wide achievements. Lastly, this information is very much subject to change. So this recorded list is based on placements made from June 12th of 2025. Anyways, let's get on with the list. Entering the top 25, we have Acheron version 2.1 with a connected run of 32% plus 100%. This was achieved by the current number 1 player, Zoink, back on August 22nd of 2022, the day Acheron was verified. The 2.1 version of Acheron is slightly harder than the current version, due to the 2.2 update physics changing some of the gameplay. So had it been verified last year, it likely would have been placed lower on the list, and not be mentioned in this video. But regardless, it's remarkable for being the only achievement on this list that dates back to 2022. Unnerved Slaughterhouse 100%. This was from a player you'll hear mentioned a few times in this video, wPopoff. It was achieved back on October 8th of 2023, with Popoff only needing 1 day to complete it, and fluked it from 81%. It's actually insane to think that right after Amethyst was rated, the released version of Slaughterhouse was pushed out of the top 15. However, this won't be the only time you'll see Slaughterhouse mentioned in this list, as surprising as that sounds. So let's just carry on with the other accomplishments. Every End 100%. First achieved and verified by Hamilton on March 16th of 2025. It is currently the 5th hardest level verified as of the making of this video. And in Minecap's own words, it was created to separate the need for superhuman skills such as consistent/high CPS spamming, or sharp wave precision, and was meant to be accessible for anyone, mainly by testing the endurance of those who genuinely wanted to give every end a shot. So if you think you have what it takes, give this 7-minute level a try. Boobawamba 100%. First achieved and verified by EastShark1 back on October 5th of 2024. EastShark put more than 175,000 attempts into beating this level. and had only recently gained notoriety for being placed as the 14th hardest level, to the 9th, and then as the 3rd hardest level in existence. Currently, Wubawamba is placed as number 4 on the demon list, but these adjustments became widespread news to the Geometry Dash community, and is still very much talked about to this day, with nobody having completed it in almost a year after its release. But now, let's continue on with the list. Now closing the top 25, we have 156% on Anathema. This was achieved by Nethermind on March 17th of 2025. Anathema is currently the 7th hardest level in Geometry Dash, and is the last level of Necroplace's Dedication series. This accomplishment, if hypothetically placed on the demon list, would place between Wubawamba and Nullscapes in difficulty, but some players may have a different perspective on it, given how fast players adapt to the hardest levels nowadays. So without jumping to conclusions, it's only right to wait and hear others' thoughts on it. But anyways, let's go on to the next section. Now entering the top 20, we have Heliopolis, 60 to 100%. Achieved by the top player, Thunder, back on November 13th of 2024. His version of Heliopolis, prior to the nerfed version he meant to verify, is marked as one of the greatest accomplishments ever recorded. While this 40% run is absolutely impressive, Thunder unfortunately had to drop Heliopolis due to health reasons. And as of right now, Abdeel Devil has picked up right where Thunder has left off, and got Heliopolis from 27 to 100 in 2 runs. Though this is the nerfed version of Heliopolis, it is nonetheless incredible. Best of luck to Abdeel on verifying this beast of a level. Banshee, 86%. Achieved by the verifier SPCrate back on May 13th of 2024. It is a former impossible level that dates all the way back to 2014, and is a sequel to the level Hard Machine. It was originally set to be verified by Rsteel, which was then picked up by Space UK, then Tiago, and now to SPCrate. It was rumored that this level would be just under or over Tidal Wave in difficulty, but that likely has changed due to how much the top 10 has been shifting lately. But regardless, it's very much remarkable, given that this was achieved more than a year ago. SPCrate has been making a lot of progress on Banshee behind the scenes, and has remained hopeful about the verification. So I wish him the best of luck on verifying this baffling level. A highlighted level on this list, we have Flamewall with a connected run of 18 to 46 plus 18 to 84. This was achieved by the verifier Cuatrocientos on April 23rd of 2025. Cuatrocientos' skill has improved so much over the last few months, and his 1.5-year journey to verify Flamewall could potentially be over by the end of this year. This 7-minute long potential top 1 extreme demon is one of the most awaited levels of all time, by its huge length and intensity throughout the level. And while this achievement is on the lower side of this list, it won't be the first time you'll see it mentioned. So for now, let's carry on to the next one. Nullscapes 100%. First achieved and verified by Zoink back on September 2nd of 2024. This level has undergone many controversies due to Zoink's fixation on adding fixed hitboxes to his verifications, which he trolled people on Twitter about, and its built-in click between frames detector that prevents users from playing it. While this controversy was put behind most of us, Nullscapes to this day does not have a single victor, which, when you think about it, with its unusual gameplay, combined with it literally being the 3rd hardest level on the demon list, it makes sense why not many people are going for it. The closest I've seen yet was an 82% run made by Adri420, but other than that, it's mostly left off as a level more for looks than attempting. And now closing the top 20, we have Acheron 44% on 60 Hz, achieved by the player Lane. I think that's how you pronounce it, back on September 4th of 2024. This might confuse some of you as to why this is on the list, given how obscure this achievement is. But if you know anything about 60 Hz, you'll know exactly why this is mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, the 2.1 version of Acheron is actually slightly harder than the 2.2 version of it. And the fact that Lane got 44% on 60 Hz is incredible. With almost every click being a 60 Hz frame perfect, it severely decreases the odds that your clicks would align exactly the way that you want it to. So huge congratulations to Lane on this massive achievement. But now let's dive into the top 15. Now at the midway section of the hardest achievements list, we have Flame Wall, 68%. Achieved by Cuatrocientos on May 31st of 2025. This is currently his largest progression from zero, with his previous best run being 62%, which means it added an additional 30 seconds of gameplay that Cuatrocientos had to undergo whilst experiencing a bunch of nerves. As of me writing this, he had put in more than 171,000 attempts to Flame Wall, which is wild. But if you think that this is amazing progress, check out this one. Coming in once again, we have Flame Wall from 3 to 86%, achieved by Cuatrocientos back on September 10th of 2024. At the time, this was considered to be one of the greatest flukes in Geometry Dash history, because of Cuatrocientos' previous best run from zero being 48%. And to have 83% of the level completed like that was bizarre for the community to grasp. It is his greatest run made thus far, and let's just hope he can get that one lucky attempt to surpass 68% for a new best from zero. Anyways, let's continue on to the next one. Coming up next, we have Tidal Wave with connected runs of 39%, 41%, 50%, 52%, and 61%. Achieved by the third Tidal Wave victor, Servax, on May 3rd of 2025. There isn't really much to mention about this achievement alone, since he didn't really see it much as an accomplishment. But what I can mention is that Servax may potentially hold the world record for the lowest attempt count to complete Tidal Wave, which is still an enormous 47,900 attempts. I'm not certain on how much wPopoff had put into it, but some people speculate it to be around 42,000 attempts, but I wouldn't know for sure. So I want to give a huge congratulations to Servax on this achievement and his completion. And while I am highlighting Tidal Wave at this moment, let's just move on to its verification. Up next, we have Tidal Wave 100%. Achieved and verified by Zoink back on September 9th of 2023. This level stood as one of the longest levels to remain as the top one, until the verification of the potential top one Thinking Space 2 and current top one Amethyst. It took Zoink 49,534 attempts to verify it, and it stayed as the hardest level ever completed for 623 days. And now, it's crazy to think that Tidal Wave had potentially and instantaneously become a top 3 verification in a span of 2 hours. But as the saying goes, all good things must eventually come to an end. Closing the top 15, we have buffed Tidal Wave 100%, achieved by one of Geometry Dash's best players, wPopoff, on April 1st of 2025, which is a crazy day to beat it. There isn't really much to mention about this achievement, except there are some itty-bitty changes at some parts on Popoff's buffed version of Tidal Wave that looks totally normal. According to Popoff, this is his third time beating Tidal Wave, and he is starting to see Tidal Wave more as a warm-up. similar to what he started by treating Slaughterhouse as such. Anyways, huge congratulations for him beating this totally unchanged version of Tidal Wave. And we can finally move on to the top 10. Entering the top 10, we have one of the most popular and hardest achievements, Slaughterhouse 300%, or 3 in a row as I mentioned earlier. It was achieved by wPopoff back on April 27th of 2024. This accomplishment absolutely stunned the community, with these connected runs widely being considered harder than Tidal Wave alone, and as wPopoff's personal second hardest achievement. Huge congratulations to Popoff for initiating the largest scale of the is dead trend. Now to talk about one of the more recent accomplishments, we have Thinking Space 2 100%, achieved and verified by Zoink on May 24th of 2025. This verification was part of one of the most eventful days in Geometry Dash history, as this is one of the 2 top 1 levels verified on that same day. It was classified to be the #1 hardest level for only 2 hours, before another top 1 verification dethroned it. But there is a possibility that it could not be the case, as Thinking Space 2 is heavily subject to change in terms of placement. It isn't confirmed to be harder or easier than Tidal Wave, so based on public opinion, it's been placed to be more difficult. But this is the only placement that could likely be adjusted when more top players give their public opinions about its difficulty, so take this placement with a grain of salt. Flame Wall, with a connected run of 57%, 43%, 25%, and 43% again, achieved by Cuatrocientos on April 23rd of 2025. This is by far Cuatrocientos' most impressive and remarkable achievement, and it's honestly unfortunate that it wasn't more publicized than it should have been. His consistency was through the roof at this moment, and that's what some of these hardest accomplishments are categorized as. I should have mentioned this earlier, but the top 25 hardest achievements list is primarily categorized by players' consistency, progressions, or by levels completion. And these connected runs on Flame Wall definitely fit on the consistency range on this list. Let's just hope that this consistency can come back once again to allow Cuatrocientos' journey to verify Flame Wall be concluded. For number 7, we have Grief 65 to 100 3 times in a row. This is one of the many accomplishments on Grief that will almost entirely cover the rest of this video, so just prepare for that. It was achieved by the verifier, Doggy, on May 22nd of 2025, and it has been considered one of the only current top 1 levels to rival Amethyst, a level that will absolutely be mentioned later in this video. And as a fun fact, Doggy as of right now has gotten 65 to 100 more than 100 times. The dedication this man has is absolutely crazy, and it's also understandable to see how much his enjoyment has declined for this level. I mean, it's called Grief for a reason, so it's bound to drain people out. Anyways, let's go to the next one. Now closing the top 10, we have Grief Madness 85%, achieved by Doggy back on November 1st of 2024. It's essentially 23 to 85 on Grief, in addition to Stereo Madness gameplay at the beginning. And despite the accidental nature of Griefer's section being entirely white, it was incredible to see Doggy still passing his part after that sudden occurrence, and almost passing Grenade of Tacos. There isn't really much to talk about this achievement in itself, since it was only made to help Doggy transition to the first drop. So let's now move on to the top 5. Finally entering the top 5, we have Grief 80%, achieved back on November 24th of 2024. As of me writing this, it is Doggy's best run from 0%, which is likely subject to change since Doggy's consistency has been improving over the last couple months, with him reaching or surpassing 65%, 42 times since the start of this verification, most of which occurred during April and May of this year. While it is great to see how far he's been getting, I do feel bad for Doggy undergoing such a griefer mind block, and I absolutely agree with his statement that once he surpasses 80%, it would remove a bunch of weight off his shoulders to slightly get over his 65% mind block. But like I mentioned earlier, grief covers almost the rest of this video because of its unbelievable difficulty. So let's carry on to the next one. Coming in with an unexpected progression, we have grief 17 to 92%, achieved on January 19th of 2025. This 75% run was considered to be the hardest achievement in Geometry Dash history at the time, but the fact that this achievement was only 4 months ago and is number 4 on the list as of me writing this is bewildering. Some question as to why this 75% run is harder than 80% from 0, but it is because Grenade of Tacos' part is considered to be the hardest part on grief, in which Doggy had miraculously surpassed. This isn't the best run Doggy has accomplished though, as this next one is considered to be the greatest run in all of Geometry Dash as of right now. Finally reaching the top 3 hardest achievements in Geometry Dash, we have grief 25 to 100%, achieved on February 26th of 2025. This is by far Doggy's best run to 100%. The way he was able to jump from starting at 25% and completely skipping over 35 to 100 absolutely rattled the community. However, once grief is verified, this placement on the hardest achievements list will likely no longer exist. So for the time being, this is hands down the hardest run ever accomplished in Geometry Dash history. He also did get a 25 to 97% run just a month after on his 200th grief stream. So that's a 72% run right there. Pretty cool. And while this is 3rd place on the list, most of us know exactly what is coming up next. As the 2nd hardest achievement in all of Geometry Dash, we have Amethyst 100%, achieved by the verifier wPopoff on May 24th of 2025, which was also the same day Thinking Space 2 was verified, making it a historic day for the Geometry Dash community. This top 1 extreme demon took over 115,000 attempts for Popoff to beat, which is undoubtedly the most investment he had ever put into a level out of any other one so far. According to Popoff, Amethyst is miles harder than Tidal Wave, which leaves the biggest question as to if Amethyst is just barely easier or harder than grief. A question we can't really know for sure until grief is verified, which leaves us the hardest achievement ever recorded thus far. And finally, the hardest achievements ever recorded. We have grief with a connected run of 56 to 100 plus 67%, achieved on April 23rd of 2025. He had essentially beat grief backwards without any deaths in between, which could arguably be on par or harder than grief alone. Now, I've been a longtime supporter of Doggy, even before this verification process began, and have watched almost every single grief stream, in the hopes of witnessing him verifying it live. And with him verifying grief by the use of the Click Between Frames mod, it's insane to see this verification surpass the 1-year barrier. It really puts into perspective how difficult grief truly is, with all the buffs Doggy had put into it. And I want to close this last section off by saying that hopefully he can overcome his griefer mind block to eventually get that one lucky attempt to take this level down once and for all. With all that said, that concludes the hardest achievements in Geometry Dash. I know this list can change a lot as time progresses, so for the end of this video, I'm gonna put up a picture on screen of the most recent changes made right before I had processed this video. If you all want more list changes after this video is published, I'll leave a link to Ancep's hardest achievements list in the description. Also, I had to redo this entire video all over again, because the original video got corrupted, completely shattering my soul. So if you all enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more. And I want to give a special thanks to Anceps for allowing me to make a video on this topic for the 2-year anniversary. And a huge thanks to all of my channel members for helping me stay active on bringing more content for you all. Thank you all for watching, and Ilagofasho Hippopocanorius.